I'm going to resume recording. So this gathering today will be recorded, so you'll be able to get a copy of that recording and a follow-up email. It'll also be archived on our webinar page. Link is below there. And you can share that with anyone who either missed it or wasn't able to join. Please feel free to ask questions throughout. So use the chat function to ask questions, and then we'll be kind of collecting those questions at the end. We'll have at least 10 to 15 minutes to ask those questions of the folks here today. I will be sending a copy of the presentation in, not in handouts, but in the chat. So I will do that in just a moment to allow everyone to join and get that handout. I am going to make a plug to please fill out the survey at the end of our gathering. Your page will kind of pop up automatically with the survey. You also get a link in the follow-up email, but we'd love to know your thoughts. And our agenda for today, we're going to do an overview of the SGSO network real quick, share who's here, who registered, share a number of related SGSO resources specific to this topic, a summary of promising practices. We're going to dive into breakout groups to go into different subcategories within sustaining school gardens. And then we're going to do some Q&A. So just a little quick overview about the SGSO network. We are a group of folks that are connecting school garden support organizations to inspire one another, share best practices, resources, and ideas. The three main ways we do that are through webinars, such as the one that you're on right now, in-person gatherings, when we can do that again in person, as well as digital commons, including our email list and our forum, which I will share in just a second. So this is just a little snapshot of our forum. It's a really lovely and lively, engaged, informed group. You can get there by going to sgsonetwork.org/forum or /connect. So check that out as a way to connect with other school garden support professionals. And then specifically today, if you want to go to the next slide, we are diving into the Promising Practices series. This is a series that is coming out of our first ever virtual SGSO Network Leadership Institute. We've done a number, in fact, I think about 5 in-person leadership institutes in the past. So because of our current time, we just wrapped up a virtual institute, kind of diving into working groups in these 4 key areas of sustaining school gardens, finding and strengthening high quality lessons, strengthening equity and inclusion, program assessment, measuring and sharing impact. Those 4 categories, we had 4 separate working groups. And then as kind of a share out from the things that we learned from those working groups, we are doing a webinar for each. So here are the dates. Please join us. Our next one is on March 17th, going into finding and sequencing high quality lessons. And then in addition to that, sorry, just to plug real quick, we're also summarizing all the pieces and adding them to our promising practices section of our website. So real fast, who's here? We've got organizations, lots of different types of organizations. The predominant types are school districts, school or district entity, or a nonprofit. We come from 46 states, within the US, and then as well as Canada. You all support kind of local, regional school garden programs, as well as national programs. And together we all support just the folks who registered for this particular webinar. Across our network, we support a lot more gardens, but for this particular webinar, over 6,700 gardens. So that's super exciting. Great. So now I'm going to pass it over to Nicole.
Hi. So excited so many of you are all here today. My name is Nicole Porto. I'm the Education Director with Land to Learn, a nonprofit SGSO working in the Hudson Valley region of New York. And I co-facilitated this working group institute that looked at best practices or promising practices for sustaining and integrating school gardens. And I worked with May, who is going to talk a little bit more about our process and how we got here.
Hi, everybody. My name is May Tsupros. I actually have worked now at 2 school garden support organizations. The first one is Gardeneers. It's in Chicago. I co-founded it. and I'm still a current board member. And I also currently am living in Ishpeming, Michigan in the Upper Peninsula, where I am the Director of Programs and Partnerships for an organization called Partridge Creek Farm. I am also, just like Nicole, so thrilled that so many of you are here today, because sustaining school gardens is a really, really, really foundational, important thing. And it is a huge, huge, huge topic. So we had the lovely challenge, Nicole and I, of working with John and the SGSO network to figure out how we could bring this topic to you and work with 6 leaders across the nation to synthesize as much information as possible in a new, innovative way. So what this looked like from the virtual institute standpoint for this topic of sustaining school gardens is that we put out a survey in January and had people from all across the nation, districts, leaders, nonprofit leaders, individuals fill out this survey and answer questions. And then we got back to them and asked several of them, based on their answers, if they would participate in an interview. So during our Institute week, the 6 leaders that you are going to meet here shortly had 20-minute interviews with leaders from across the nation. And we picked 3 specific buckets, even though sustaining school gardens has several, big underlining topics, which we identified as the 5 on the screen: relationships, funding, staffing, garden infrastructure, and continued maintenance, and program implementation curriculum. We chose 3 just based on the leaders that we had to interview. So our working group that you're about to meet, they each delegated and had a group of interviewees that they broke down and asked relationship questions, building relationship questions, to funding questions and staffing questions. It was a ton of peer-to-peer learning, and it was kind of a new process that the SGSO network has never really participated in, this like virtual peer-to-peer interview learning. So maybe it's something that we can look at in the future and include more of you in this process as well. Now, I want to just say on this webinar, we are not experts. There are a lot of people on here with a lot of questions, and we are by no means the end of the learning. There's still lots of learning to happen, but we are really proud to bring you perspectives from the field, resources, and many case studies. And I'm also really excited to share with you that John Fisher and a couple of others have been working really hard since our institute ended a couple weeks ago to get all of these learnings, these perspectives, these mini case studies, and these additional resources into a super comprehensive spot on the SGSO network website that we are bringing to you today. It literally went live like an hour ago. So you are getting the very, very, very first peek at these exceptional resources that still will add to forever, but have a really good foundation of learning on the website now. So we're really grateful. So with that said, let's dive in. I would love to introduce to you our 2 group members who worked on the funding bucket of sustaining school gardens. So our first promising practice that we're going to bring to you today is funding. And this is Leah.
Thanks, May. I'm Leah Sokolofski Burnstein. I'm the Learning Gardens Manager at the Organic Gardener in Northbrook, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. We work throughout the Chicago area.
I'm Kelli Brew. I'm the Farm to School Coordinator in Alachua County in North Central Florida. And I help manage a school garden that turned into a school farm, as well as 16 other school gardens that are district supported. I had a lot of fun talking about all of the other kinds of funding models out there.
So I'm going to share with you all some of the things that we learned in our research. So we interviewed a number of other SGSOs, and Kelli and I identified 3 important elements we thought that SGSOs with sustainable funding exhibited. They are relationship building, having diverse funding streams, and having a focused mission with flexible elements. The relationship building, our takeaway was that we should all build relationships with a diversity of stakeholders. We found it can lead to new funding sources. It lets people know the value of your work in your community, telling your story about your work and its impact, and also helps your organization move from one funding stream to another over time or when needed, if one dries up. The second element was having diverse funding streams. We know that SGSOs rely heavily on grant and foundation funding, but we learned that there can be much more fiscal resiliency in organizations with diverse funding streams. So we found that successful SGSOs sustain funding by diversifying their funding. For example, not solely relying on grants and foundations, but also having funding sources such as earned income or school district funding. And thirdly, we found that a focused mission with flexible elements was really important. A lot of the SGSOs that we talked with had sustainable funding, have a core mission, but have flexibility about what elements and programs achieve that mission. And this flexibility allows SGSOs to open up new and different programming over time and allow them to shift around or seek different sources of funding while still succeeding at fulfilling their core mission. So those were three elements that we really identified as being important. Some highlights when you go to our funding webpage to check out, there's new survey data from SGSOs. We found that grants and foundation funding and individual donations are the top ways that SGSOs fund their work, but there's also a breakdown of other sources there, so check that out. And there are snapshots of inspiring SGSOs that use different funding sources, and there are examples of all those. We included grant and foundation funding, individual donations, as well as school and district funds, university and cooperative extension funding, city, state, county funding, including taxes and legislation, earned income or fee for service, and corporate giving. So definitely go check out the webpage later and see those snapshots. And then for our funding breakout room, so we are today going to have one of the breakout rooms focus on funding, and we're going to have a discussion, which we hope you all will participate in, or some of you will choose to, about funding success that your organization has had or funding challenges that you're having. And we'll also share more of the snapshots of these successful SGSOs that we learned from.
Thank you so much, Leah and Kelly. We're really excited. So you will have a chance, if you want to check out their breakout room, to do so in just a little bit. Next, we're going to hear from the promising practices of staffing models. So Macayla and Robin, I will let you both take it away.
Thank you, May.
Thank you, May. Yeah, so I'm Macayla. I'm the education coordinator of Mill City Girls in Lowell.
And I'm Robin Jenkinson. I'm up in British Columbia, Canada, in the Gulf Islands as the gardens facilitator for our district and teaching mainly at one primary school.
And we are part of the staffing model groups. So after Robin and I interviewed 5 different organizations on their current staffing model, and also reviewing the SGSO school garden related job descriptions linked there, we pulled away 6 different highlights of what a sustainable staffing model entails. And Robin is going to take it away with our first highlight.
So we'll zip through these now, but in the breakout, we can go deeper. So 1, school district money or funding support leads to more sustainable programs or positions. We interviewed Susanna Futopoulos and really, her program benefits greatly from that support.
And our second highlight is when teachers join their classes in programs provided by garden educators, it can lead to greater and sustained institutional support. So teaching alongside the teacher versus having the teacher be alone is what we learned from Nicole from Land to Learn.
And this maybe goes without saying, but good pay, benefits, professional development, camaraderie, and advancement keep staff on longer, maintaining your capacity and sustaining your programs and helping them thrive. And that was something Amelia Bird in New Orleans shared with us.
And the fourth one from May from Gardeneers is well-facilitated youth involvement can lead to community support and great future staff. So pipelines for our youth who are truly the seeds of our programs can kind of germinate into our organizations as staff. We found super successful.
Laura Platt in Bellingham, Washington has developed an incredible garden-based learning program that mainly uses AmeriCorps members to deliver the curricula. And there are pros and cons that she shared that should definitely be weighed before diving in.
And then our last highlight is to stick with it for many years and your program will become successful. So the longer you stick with your program and position, you're going to grow greater relationships, funding, expertise, since you know the ins and out of every program, community buy-in, because people are going to know you by that point, establish gardens, and organize curricula or curriculum.
So join the staffing breakout room to dive deeper into each of these practices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Macayla and Robin. That was really awesome. I love how each group is making a plug and kind of like, join my group. So there's so much to learn. And I want everybody to know that if you don't join one of the groups, we will be taking notes in each breakout room and recording each breakout room. So you can pick whichever one you feel drawn to today, but the resources for all of them will still be there. So our third kind of overview topic that we are going to be looking at is the promising practices, which is relationship building, a super interesting topic, one that I'm personally very interested in. So we have two leaders who will be introducing this topic, and that is Anne and Vanessa. So I'll let you two take it away.
Thanks, May. Hi, I'm Anne Muller. I'm the outdoor learning specialist for the Austin Independent School District in Austin, Texas.
I'm Vanessa Sparrow. I am the Food Literacy Program Coordinator for the Powell River School District in British Columbia.
We had really great conversations with 4 SGSOs in the country, and we'll be doing a deep dive into those organizations in our breakout rooms, but wanted to share some of our findings with you. So the success of garden-based education programs delivered by SGSOs is directly related to the extent that they're able to build trusting relationships with a diversity of stakeholders and robust partnerships. And we wanted to share this visual because all of this is information that came from previous SGSO Leadership Institutes, and these are the organizations that attended those institutes. And you can see that there's a wide variety of experiences and services that are being provided. And so a diversity of partnerships is really important. One organization cannot do it all and should not do it all. It's important to make sure that you're aligning your partnerships with people who align with your mission, and that can help make a more sustainable organization. So we had some kind of buckets of wisdom that came from our group. One is school level buy-in and program integration, particularly getting to know campus staff at the beginning of the year through faculty meetings, professional learning opportunities, sitting down and eating with the teachers and the students. We heard a lot of examples of involving all grade levels and teachers. And then running the full gamut to even providing garden maintenance as a great way to get school buy-in, because we all know that maintenance is difficult. So for some, that was a strategy to build relationships, was helping to do the garden maintenance. District level buy-in definitely rose to the top. For each of the organizations that we spoke to, they had deep relationships with their districts. They either had staff or department liaisons, they had relationships with the superintendent or with the board. And we heard a lot about, Macayla mentioned this in staffing, but a lot about that pipeline and having programs grow from elementary to middle and high school, and being able to have high school students come and do programming with the elementary students, and eventually creating a career pipeline for students that have been through our programming and then joining the staff in our organizations. Definitely appreciating your stakeholders was high on the list of ways to build healthy relationships. Teacher appreciation, supporting teachers, doing kudos, and making sure that you're highlighting your partners in your communications, both online and if you have newsletters and that kind of thing. Making sure that you're really doing spotlights and celebrations of the work that people are doing. Consistent communication is key. We heard about a lot of contact ideas, from regular meetings to emails and newsletters, being in the garden, making sure that you're sharing your work and having a campus presence for communication. And then people shared a lot of information about ways to engage the community through regular updates. So what's ready to harvest, what pollinators are visiting, what can people be doing in the garden right now, in addition to how the gardens might be relating to the standards that people are teaching right now. Patience and time definitely came up. This is not something that happens in weeks or months. This is years where I always say that a school garden is never done. And I think that the relationships that you build are also never done. We're constantly investing in our community partnerships and relationships with people. So making sure that you're building trust. We talked a lot about working from the inside out instead of the outside in. Nobody wants to be the organization coming in to solve everyone's problems. We want to be the organization that's coming in to work collaboratively with the community. And so really finding ways to embed your organization rather than coming in and being a savior was something that came up a lot. And then every organization, and I heard this both in funding and staffing, that flexibility was key, and making sure that even if you have a core program, you're listening to the needs of the school or the teacher to be flexible for their needs and adjust the programming as needed. And then this also came up with the other groups, but was key to relationship building, in that having staff who live and model and breathe the work that you're doing is extremely important. Investing in professional development, having full-time staff if possible, making sure you're paying your staff competitively if possible. And then we heard that consistent staff schedules where a garden educator is assigned to a school for the full year or for multiple years allows them to build really deep connections with those campuses. So we hope you'll all join us, and we'll do a deep dive on what it looks like for each of those specific 4 organizations for how they built their relationships.
Amazing. So let's get to the good stuff. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now and let Tristana explain breakout groups. So like the teacher in me, let's everybody take 10 seconds and decide now what breakout room you would like to go into. Relationship building, staff models, or funding models. And I'll let Tristana share with you how to get there.
Welcome, everyone. So glad you joined us to hear a little bit more about partner relationship building. Hopefully we can give you some good insight into what some of our comrades are doing in this work. So The first organization we're going to take a look at together today is PEAS. PEAS is in Austin, Texas. It stands for Partners for Education, Agriculture, and Sustainability. You will get a copy of this slide deck. So if you're furiously trying to write down their Twitter handle or whatever, you'll get that information as a follow-up material. PEA's mission is to cultivate joyful connections to the natural world through outdoor learning and edible education. Their main program is a school day program where they have educators who go and lead outdoor and edible education classes at schools. They also have a community farm at one of the elementary schools in town and do edible education, including an Emerald Lagasse cooking kitchen, which was just installed and due to COVID has not opened its doors to students yet, but I know they're looking forward to that. So there's a lot of info on this one slide. But these are some of the things that PEAS in particular did really well. Their founder and executive director was a teacher in the school district. She founded the community farm and then realized that teachers needed a lot of support in using the space. Having a space wasn't enough. Even asking them, inviting them, telling them to use the space wasn't enough. And they really saw a need. And so she left the classroom and founded PEAS. She has worked for years to build relationships with funders, and they get consistent funding from some of the same funders year after year. They work on staff consistency, particularly, which I mentioned in my previous general presentation, that they assign staff to one school and they work at that school for the entire year. So they can build really deep relationships with those teachers and the principal and the parent communities. And assuming there is not staff turnover, some of their educators have been with schools for years now. So they have really deep relationships. They have community building built into their staff schedules. So they have staff who are going and teaching lessons at schools, and then they have hours built into each week that are specifically for community building. Could be professional learning, it could be garden maintenance, it could be sitting down at a PLC with teachers. Their curriculum is aligned to academics, which makes it easy to get principals in the district on board. In Texas, we use the TEKS, and so their program is all TEKS aligned. They have really long-term relationships with both the city and the school district, and they sit on several committees within the district and the city. So they're not just building relationships, but sitting at some of the decision-making tables with partners to help influence the school garden network in Austin. They're able to be agile to the community's needs, which I think any surviving school garden support organization has proven they're pretty agile, especially with COVID. And they invest in staff development, professional development. They have budget line items set aside specifically for that, and then make sure that they're represented in community collaborations. So we're gonna head to Oregon now, heading to the West Coast, and this is Rogue Valley Farm to School. Again, you'll get a copy of this presentation so you can get all their contact info as a follow-up. So Rogue Valley's mission is to educate children about our food system through hands-on farm and garden programs and by increasing local foods in school meals. We inspire an appreciation of local agriculture that improves the economy and environment of our community and the health of its members. I personally really like seeing organizations' missions, so I wanted to share this with you for each of the 4 organizations that we're doing, because I think it's nice to see how they align to the work that you do. They have school programming similar to what I mentioned with PEAS. They have a farm and they do field trips to that farm, and they provide produce to the cafeteria. And as COVID response, have been providing free produce boxes to the community, which I'll share a little bit more about here. So Rogue Valley also invested deeply in their district and superintendent relationships. In this district in particular, the superintendent was really passionate about garden education. And so he was the one who wanted to support school gardens with this relationship. And they're unique because they are also providing food for the district through their farm. And so that food service relationship is one within the district that has helped to really embed their work into the culture of their district. They provide professional development, and they're also very agile to the needs of their individual campuses. So they have a core program and they serve schools that have very different properties, that have very different numbers of students and teachers, that have different socioeconomic backgrounds of students, et cetera. And so, you know, where they have a very tiny school that has just 1 or 2 classes per grade level, their program has ended up looking a little bit different than a school where there might be 5 classes per grade level. So really making sure that they're agile and responsive to what teachers need. They help with creation and maintenance of gardens. They find that if you leave all the garden maintenance to teachers and parents, it doesn't always happen. I would agree with that. We definitely have that issue here in Austin. And then they have dedicated staff time to building relationships with the school. So they sit down and eat with teachers and with students. They have they send weekly emails, they build relationships with the cafeteria staff, they use the staff room, they make sure to really deeply orient themselves to the school and maintain bulletin boards, they go to school events, they work on integrating the garden at the school into the school events. And so they really shined in that area of what it can look like to be a campus support organization. And then they're providing free produce boxes to families as a COVID response, and they're putting educational materials into those boxes. So using that as another way to build a deeper relationship. They're feeding the community as well as feeding the minds of the community, which I thought was great. Grow Pittsburgh. So heading over to the East Coast, Grow Pittsburgh. Their mission is to teach people how to grow food and promote the benefits that gardens bring to our neighborhoods. They have 2 key programs, their Learning Garden program and the Flagship program. The Flagship involves 1 garden educator who returns to the same school to teach in the classroom and garden spaces weekly throughout the year. They focus mostly on kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and the Learning Garden program is more a train the trainer model, where various educators co-teach and train the classroom teachers to take on caring and teaching in the school garden space with their students. And they found that both of those models have been very successful in their own ways. They have a very robust relationship with the school district. They say that relationship building is at the heart of their program. They really led our entire interview with that. Program staff attend every school board meeting and they make sure that they're as connected as possible to as many stakeholders. They take the time to really listen to what's being asked for by the schools and make it easy for teachers and students to have opportunities to be in the gardens. And they do regular teacher surveys. That didn't come up in our interviews with other folks, but I have a feeling most people are doing teacher surveys. That just didn't come up. They have a very strong organizational culture. It's important to them. Their office is arranged in a way that it is conducive to collaboration. They eat communally together. They are really passionate about building an organizational culture that mirrors that they want to be helping to create in the community. They have a healthy professional development budget. They have well-supported health insurance and a vibrant culture of communication and teamwork. They make sure to see themselves as being embedded in the community rather than an organization coming from the outside in providing a service. And they find the people in the community that are already gathering people. So are there matriarchs who are feeding people informally? Are there art or garden spaces or churches that are already gathering people? And they work with them. They get involved in projects that are already happening and see if their service fits the needs of the communities. They're also involved in many local food-related organizations and events, and staff are often supporting other work going on in the community. And then we're going to head back to the West Coast one more time to Gardens to Grow in Valley Springs, California. And their mission is to promote and support healthy and sustainable lifestyles, youth development, community involvement, and self-reliance in Calaveras County schools and communities by teaching children and adults how to grow and prepare healthy food. They, like the others, have school-based garden programming and nutrition programming. They also do after-school and summer programming. The founder of Gardens to Grow In was a teacher and still is a teacher, in the school district. This school district teacher homegrown story was similar with Peas and Gardens to Grow In. They have a range of community partners, and they spoke to partnering with the cooperative extension, food literacy partners, and making sure that they have really deep connections with the teachers as well. They have a program where every elementary student has garden programming. So every teacher has a garden educator come and provide garden programming for their students, which was an aha moment for me. In Austin, we have 130 schools, so we don't yet have that story, but someday that's my dream, sparked by Gardens to Grow in. And in high school, they have students who are in their ag classes or other environmental science classes who go down and do programming with the elementary students. And so they have this really nice cyclical model with their students. And they found that those students who went through the program when they were younger, which is now everybody, are more likely to be involved as high school students in those classes. The garden educators bring all the materials needed for the lessons, and for Gardens to Grow In, the teachers are not required to stay for the lessons. They are required with some of our other partners, but Gardens to Grow In finds that teachers have a lot on their plate, and it could be used as a time for them to get something else done while the kids engage in garden education with them. And they meet with their teachers every couple of months during their planning time. And that gives opportunity for them to embed the gardens into their regular lesson plans, not just their designated garden time. Their garden lessons are scheduled in for every teacher in elementary, and it's supported by the administrators. And it could be once a month, it could be once a week, it depends on the school. They worked really hard on building those administrator relationships. They met with the superintendent, they've done presentations, they do individual meetings with district staff, and their focus is really on building value at each school and making that visible. They've also invited administrators regularly to come to the gardens and to the program and into the programming so that they can see it in action. And then they do maintenance. They pay for maintenance through their program. So they hire contractors and find that parents and teachers need that support. And so they help make that happen for them. This is just a resource that I wanted to share with you. You can peruse this at your leisure when you get these follow-up resources. But I thought that there were some really nice ideas in here, some of which are mirrored in what we've shared with what we found out through our interviews, and some might be new. And then we want to take a moment. I'm going to actually grab this link and stop screen sharing for a moment. And we're going to send you, we're all staying here together, but if you click on this link, it'll take you to a Jamboard where we'd like you to share a little bit about what's worked for you. I'm going to go back to share.
Can I just interrupt for a second, Anne? There is a question in the chat. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or have that person put their question into the Jamboard.
No, I think now is great.
Yeah, I think it's it's a question that probably reflects many people's experience. So Francesca, if you're okay with me sharing that, it is, Francesca says, you can see it in your chat, but that she's with the school garden in Rhode Island. The school district is currently under a state takeover. They have a 2-year governor with a history of charter school over public school support. And of course, we're all still in COVID. So she's wondering if anyone has advice or examples for relationship building within such a stressful and chaotic school district environment. So maybe we can actually use this as a kind of warm up to kind of talk about what is a significant challenge and then, yeah, get going with our.
Yeah, that's a great question, Francesca. That's a lot going on in one place. I would love to hear ideas that participants have, which can definitely be shared on the Jamboard. And I also have a resource. I don't have it readily available. I wasn't prepared for this question, but I have a COVID response list of guidelines that we've used at the district level in Austin that I can share with Tristana to share out as a resource that might be helpful for you on how and why people can be using their gardens. So we've had some principals who are resistant to people getting outside right now and others that are open. We don't have the same situation in terms of the school district state takeover. But would love to hear what other folks have to say for that. And we've got 2 questions on the Jamboard. And if you haven't used a Jamboard before, on the left-hand side right here, the 4th icon down is a sticky note. You can click on that sticky note, choose your color, and then drop in your response. So the first question here is, what challenges have you experienced with building community partnerships? Francesca's got several going on. We all are experiencing the COVID challenge. And at the top, you can scroll to the second page, which says, which strategies or helpful practices have you used to build community relationships?
And can I just stop for a second? I've just got people saying that they can only view and not access stickies on the Jamboard.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, and do people need to sign in to use the Jamboard? I'm just going to say I have no idea. I have never used one, so.
No, you shouldn't need to. I just changed that permission. Hopefully that works. Sorry about that.
So can people access it now? Add a sticky? Great. Looks like it's working.
Okay, great. We know we have a lot of experts in the room, so we wanted to give a chance to do that deeper dive on what our interview partners have experienced and then give you all a chance to help us learn and grow. I don't see any popping up. Have there been? Oh, there's one.
Oh, I can see.
It's like when you're throwing a party and waiting for the first person to come and wondering if anyone is coming to your party, just wondering if anybody's post-it note will come to our party. Yeah, funding constraints are definitely an issue. Parent-run gardens, school spaces that change hands, yeah. Turnover, I think parent turnover and teacher turnover and general staff turnover are major issues. I think one of the things that we sensed from the folks that we've been interviewing is that even with that teacher turnover, if you are consistent in the programming that you're providing and the staffing that are at the school, that's one piece in terms of trying to limit the chaos that might ensue as people move on to something else. And I think garden maintenance and use of the garden both are severely impacted by staff turnover. Let's see. I'm going to move these together. We've got funding issues. Hopefully the funding breakout group will have some good ideas as well that will help to support you all. Maintenance, community. Let's see, I'm just going to try to do some quick sorting here. This one kind of goes with, well, I'll leave it because I think you intentionally put it here. We've got district support. Maybe I'll put that with community. Legal aspects. Yeah, this is something I spend a lot of time now in my position at the district working on MOUs and our joint use agreements and our district level policies that make it easier to have partnerships. So that's definitely something that takes years and years to work on. Everybody's stretched thin. Yeah. I think right now people are in major survival mode with COVID, and I think that most of our SGSOs are like really anxious to get back into the garden with kids so that we can be a lifeline for our teachers who are really struggling. I'm going to hop over to the strategies board and just get a sense of what's coming on here. Creation of a garden team of teachers. That's something that we recommend at the district level here in Austin. And some schools do it and some have not been able to make that happen. And it can make a huge difference having a garden team. Oh, that's great. Donating food to the food pantry. Let's see, parent-led garden recess, where students can help maintaining the garden during recess. Oh, that's a great idea. We have a school in Austin that does that, and I had totally forgotten about that. Yeah, they have a really robust and involved parent community, and every Friday they have a parent in the garden and the kids can choose to be in the garden for recess. That's a great one. I had totally forgotten about that. Yes, providing professional development and curriculum development is huge. Teachers want to know how they can use it. I think the key is to help garden education to not feel like one more thing, but like the thing, or a critical part of the education process. There's some really great ideas here. You guys are amazing experts. We have our new information up on the website, and I think that there's some great ideas here that we can add in and really enhance the information that's provided on that website too.
I think
School parents. Oh yeah, go ahead.
We discussed previously that we're also willing, I mean, we're not the experts by any means, but we're also willing to engage with you one-on-one if that's in any way helpful, to kind of just, you know, have a bit of an individual chat about the issues that you might be facing. So if you wanted to get in touch or put a question to us that way, we could do that.
Yeah. I think I love this one here, sharing wins. I think celebration is just so key. And there are various levels of celebration. You know, big community event celebrations about something where somebody wins an award kind of a thing, to all the way down to sending an email to one teacher and give a celebration. Like, wow, I went by the garden and I saw that you were out there with your kids during a non-scheduled time. That's so awesome. I'm so proud to see that the garden's being used or something. Any level of celebration can be really important.
And can I just say that we will be sending these boards to people? I've just said that we will, but then I have, you know, acknowledging that I don't know anything about Jamboard. Can we do that?
Yes, yep, definitely. This link was, Tristana will be providing this along with a copy of our slide deck to the group in the follow-up
So I don't
material.
have to madly take screenshots of this Jamboard.
Yes, you can do that too. On a Mac, it's Command-Shift-4, and then you can.
Yeah, no, I know how to do that. I was just saying I don't need to if this is going to be sent to people.
Oh yeah, yep, it will be.
Great.
Yep. I think young adult volunteer groups is great. And this makes me think of Scouts here in Austin are pretty active in terms of helping to get volunteers and raise money for school garden projects. School Parents Club, PTAs often have a school grounds committee on them, depending on the robustness of the PTA. Yeah, this is happening at my son's school. The school is open. Schools are open here in Austin. Parents have the choice for remote learning, but the parents, particularly from March through October in this past year, the parents really adopted the garden.
Sorry, I don't know if this has been mentioned because I've been monitoring the chat and responding to people there, but I try to hold, I mean, it's a bit difficult now, like most things, but I try to hold as many kind of events, community events as possible in the school gardens that I look after, and kind of embed those as much as possible in the local community. So in summer, that would look like school garden club day camps, summer camp, that kind of thing. And they just celebratory meals. Like if I have a whole host of volunteers associated with my program. And so when we would have like potlucks in the garden and invite any staff or students or anybody who is around to join us. Those kind of informal things where people feel like they don't have to make a commitment as such to something, or they're not participating in something formally, can go a long way. I mean, obviously that's very specific to context. I live in a fairly small rural community where that's the way people do things. So I know it's different in big cities, but yeah, I have found that kind of approach really helpful.
I totally agree. We have schools that are masters at that here in Austin. A personal example, my son's school had a campus camp out where we had 40 families camping on the track and field at school. And a parent harvested carrots in the garden with the kids and then cooked the carrots over the campfire with them, and they got to eat them at that camp out. And so it was this existing school event of the camp out that in that simple way incorporated the garden in, or we're talking about mostly vegetable gardens here, but habitat gardens are really important and part of our garden ecosystem in Austin. And we have a school who showed I forget the name of the video, but it's that monarch. It's like a monarch movie. I forget the name of it, but anyways, they got one of those blow up video screens and did a like garden party and watched the monarch movie. Or even if you're having a STEM night or career night, having something set up in the garden as a space to go and do activities can be really great.
So just a heads up, we only have a few more minutes before 12, which is when we are actually supposed to end. So I just thought that if anyone has any burning questions that they really feel like they want to raise, now would be the time to put it in the chat. Or unmute yourself and just have at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I actually work outside of the traditional model. I'm actually a small business that as a vendor, and I find myself filling the little missing holes that districts can't quite put together, one of them being garden design and training and curriculum writing, that type of thing for our districts. I did want to add some things, and I've been trying to access the Jamboard. I can't access it. So anyway, I just wanted to say we have utilized our master gardeners to come in and speak in the school gardens and opened it up to the community so that parents not only get to see what's happening in the garden, but they get to learn and appreciate from that aspect. We've had students learn how to be tour guides, and so they learn a station in the garden and they kind of become the resident expert. And then when we do parent tours, then they get a chance to kind of shine and brag about what they've learned and why that station's so special. We've even done like special projects where we just kind of group the kids together if they feel better in 2 or 3 groupings. 2 or 3 students in a group. and they can kind of show off the project that they've done. So we kind of incorporate that about like every sometimes it's 6 weeks, sometimes it's just during the holidays. It depends on the school site, but it does seem to really help us enlist parents because they're really proud of what their kids have achieved and they want to support that excitement at home, that kind of thing. And then the last thing I was going to add is that we have done a lot with habitat recreation, and I find that it creates more topic matter for the students to talk about, and it's a little less responsibility in terms of maintenance if it's using native plants and you're kind of going for a wilder, kind of area space. So those seem to work very successfully for us here.
Thanks for that, Sarah. The pollinator supported vegetable gardens is definitely something that funders have been interested in supporting here in Austin, because those habitat spaces will also help our vegetable gardens to be all that more successful if we've got healthy pollinators attracted to the area.
Hi, I am Julie with Cloudview Farm in Ephrata, Washington. And I feel like I'm on the other, like we actually are not connected really with any schools right now. And what we would like to do is connect with the schools and bring them to the farm rather than going to the schools. And I feel like I'm having a real challenge with that. And I know that it was, when I started this job a year ago, it was literally when everything shut down. So that wasn't helpful. And then just, I don't know if it's the schools in this area, if I'm not reaching out to the right people. I just don't know if like I should try to infiltrate just the teacher, I don't know if that's the right word, but the teachers, or go to more like the principals or a PTA meeting, or like I'm having trouble finding the right connections, I guess.
Julie,
go ahead.
I'll private message you because we're about to close in 5 seconds, but I have a couple of thoughts for you.
Okay, thank you.
Got about 15 minutes left in the groups. Thanks everyone for your patience with breakout rooms. We just learned a lot for when we have a huge 130 person plus meeting that it might take a second. So thank you. Hope you all had a good time in your breakout rooms. I thought we kind of had a thought. If any of the 3 breakout rooms had any aha moments or things to share or a summary, just thought we'd open that up in case that feels alive for all of you. If the leaders of those 3 breakout rooms, if that not a good fit, no worries, but I thought we'd at least start there, and then we'll dive into questions. If you do have any questions while the breakout group leaders are thinking if they'd like to share something, if you do have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We did receive some of your questions from the registration form for the webinar, so I'll be asking some of those, but if there are any that are super alive right now, please throw them in the chat and we'll dive into some of your questions. But do any of the breakout groups want to share any summaries or aha moments that you just kind of dove into?
All right, I'll go.
Go ahead.
No, Kelli, please, Kelli, you go.
I was just going to say that we just had so many more questions than answers as far as funding goes. And I think what we got from our breakout room was what we had gotten from the folks that we had talked to before, like the super importance of relationship building and flexibility, and questions about larger grants that can get you started while you're working on the sustainability side, and then the real importance of finding funding for people. There's a lot of different possibilities for funding for supplies, but people is harder to come by, and it's like so important to getting a good start and good sustainability for a school garden program. So those were the takeaways, but tons of questions out there.
I think we just covered the fact that there are so many different staffing models. There are so many needs. There are such a range of district supported positions all the way to college interns offering school garden based learning, and that the highlights that we shared are definitely very aspirational at a continental level.
I think we heard a lot of fantastic strategies. There are a lot of great experts in our breakout room, but something that emerged for me was, in terms of relationship building, trying to start where you are. It's easy to have a sense of where you want to be and panic a bit that you're not there yet. But the relationship building happens with one visit to one teacher with a packet of seeds. I mean, you know, it's turning up at the garden one time, it's going to one meeting, it's that one call to your superintendent. It doesn't all happen at once. It's very iterative, but we need to be kind of okay and relaxed with that and just start where we are.
Great.
Vanessa, what you just said reminded me of a school garden champion who's long retired, but was a part of the San Francisco Unified School District and 70 plus schools. And they found bond measure money, which I listed in our funding page on our promising practices. But Arden Buckland-Spohr, who started the San Francisco Green School Art Alliance, her number one message was, I show up to meetings. Show up to meetings. And then she's like, then I started showing up to the right meetings, and they ended up getting millions and millions of dollars to create green outdoor spaces, which many of them were school gardens, but they were doing a school renovation bond program. She showed up to those meetings and she said, well, what about the outdoor spaces? You know, this is more than just lights and HVAC systems and, you know, alarm systems and chalkboards. What about our outdoor spaces? And they agreed, and it was a small amount of money on 3 different multi-million dollar bond measures that went across their region over, you know, a 7-year period. So show up to the right meetings, share your stories.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, thanks for sharing about your breakout groups. That was super helpful. Some of you have asked, you know, will we hear from all the different breakout groups? We're going to try and combine all of the different recordings from each of the breakout groups. But again, go back to our promising practices section of the SGSO Network website. That's where everything that was done in the working groups in the weeks prior is all assembled there. So you really get to dive into all of the great resources that they put together. We do have a question specifically about curriculum. Again, go to our best practices or promising practices section on our website. Lots of resources and curriculum there. We're also doing a curriculum kind of working group webinar next Wednesday, March 17th, same time, to kind of hear from that working group, kind of diving really specifically into curriculum. But I'll dive into maybe some questions from our registration, just to see if there's any folks that have answers about this or any, you know, good topics, resources to share. We'll start kind of with our presenters, but if you are a participant and you have something really burning, you really feel like others should know, feel free to add it to the chat or raise your hand, and or you all can unmute yourself. So unmute yourself and share. So first we'll kind of dive into summer months. There were a lot of questions about what to do over the summer, from staffing, funding. One registrant asked about, you know, setting up a model with Adopt a Box. So facilitators, have you had any particular success with what to do over the summer? And then we'll open up to participants.
Yeah, here at Mill City Grows, we found a really successful adopts the garden or adopts the bed model, where parents and their students or the kids of the school were able to own that garden for the summer months and grow whatever they wanted, with support from Mill City Grows as well as the lead school garden teacher there. But they were able to grow anything they wanted, and we were able to provide them seeds or seedlings or any technical support that they needed. And we found that super successful. And we also do a youth program throughout the summer, partnered with a community organization that their stipends by the city to work with us for 8 weeks of the summer. And through that program, we're able to maintain all of the beds, our school garden beds in Lowell. And the kids were paid. And we also had some really great success of them kind of growing up with us into full-time positions.
In New York, we do something similar. There's the Summer Youth Employment Program. Is that in other places as well? I don't know if that's just a state thing, but if you partner with the right people, you can hire youth to manage garden sites.
And I don't know how many of you are from the Deep South, but summer is not our best time for growing, but we grow mostly weeds. But we do have some summer crops that we can keep in the school gardens. And we partnered with a seed saving organization in town that after we've harvested the crops that will be going to the school meals, they come in and plant with the students before they leave things that will be producing seeds in the fall when they return. So that seemed to be a really good match for us.
Summer day camps work for us too. So just having pretty informal, easy drop-in activity happening around a theme in a garden in a particular location.
I'm going to add to this really quickly. We utilize a summer camp at Partridge Creek Farm. It's super short. It doesn't cost too much. We actually got it sponsored, but we use that as a way to engage the kids and their parents. And then we, similar to Mill City Grows, we use that as a kind of an interest point. And then we have weekly volunteer days. So throughout the summer, then people are like super excited to come back every week and support the garden maintenance. So we kind of have that hook at the beginning, and then it goes well.
I'll just add one other example that's COVID specific. We're thinking this summer, we're just going to have families sign up. So it's one family at a time to help maintain the garden space.
Great, thank you all. That's super amazing. And I also seeing some great resources get dropped into the chat. To kind of continue on, we've gotten there's some questions about COVID relief funding. Have any of SGSOs or school gardens specifically had any success with getting state level, federal level, local city level COVID relief funding? And if you could share, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, we received a payment protection plan loan that was fully forgiven from the government. We just applied for it and got it. It was $45,000.
I'm in California, and I believe our governor is passing I think it's called SR 86 or something. It's summer funding that they're going to be designating to schools somewhere in the vicinity of $5 billion. And it's very heavily emphasized on summer experiences and not so much curriculum. And I believe a number of schools are right now looking for summer alternatives. And so if you can create some type of an outreach, that's an opportunity. It's for the whole state.
Sarah, can you repeat that? It's an SR, like a state resolution sort of thing, or
It is. It's being signed. I don't know exactly when, but it's being up right now, and I've already got it through my own district channels that school districts will be able to apply for funding for summer school to create summer experiences for children. And they're very heavily looking at school gardens as being able to take advantage of that. It's very loosely written, and so school sites will have a really like very little oversight on how they choose to spend that money. And so there's a lot of discussion about how it can be utilized for STEM education and gardens and outdoor education. So just for information. What I mean to say is that schools are considering that this month and next month. So if you're in California and you want to talk to your districts about it, that's your moment.
And probably that came from federal money. So there might be other states choosing to use their federal money for COVID relief in that way. I know at our district, they got a lot of COVID support money, and it was able to hire some of our garden educators to serve kids in what we call safe spaces. So there was a special funding for us to do outdoor teaching with students that were being brought to school for classes, which was a very small subset. But it allowed us to continue to use garden sites.
Oh, Sarah, could you just repeat that again? You said it was SR, what was the number?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'll type it in the chat so the information's there and you can follow up with your own school district.
Okay, great. That would be great. Thanks.
Great. Well, I think before we dive into another topic, I'll go ahead and kind of wrap us up. I'm not sure. Okay, great. I was like, are we looking to share a good resource? Awesome. Thank you for sharing your screen. Thank you all so much for joining. Before I kind of officially wrap up, I want to say a humongous thank you to LifeLab for pioneering the Leadership Institute way back when in 2016 and helping us to transition the Leadership Institute to a virtual and very successful Leadership Institute this year. It was a very amazing experience, and we hope this is the very beginning of just sharing out the great resources from that Leadership Institute. So thank you to LifeLab and to the funding from the Whole Kids Foundation to make that all possible. So to kind of close out, please share with us your feedback. Like May shared, this is kind of the first, we've been trying some new ways of sharing these information and resources. So please share your feedback. There was a copy of the presentation in your chat, which would have the link to the survey. The screen that'll also pop up in your browser will have the link to the survey. And then finally in the follow-up email, you'll get that. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again for joining. Thank you for sharing your experience and your resource. And we look forward to seeing you on future gatherings, whether in person or on Zoom.
Dun, dun, dun.